Today's daf is daf Ramadan. Good morning. We are up to the Gemara over here. We're talking about the different Isurim, Pasakum, Bishalakum, and Cholovakum. And the last thing we learned was about the different Gzelis they made. Says the Gemara, about 6 lines at the top of the page. Mistamech, now we're talking about the oil of a goy. That initially the oil of a guy was awesome, and later on became permitted. Says the Gemara, Mistamich va'ozer Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi was leaning on a kaspei that Rav Shimloi Yishmaya. Rav Shimloi was his gabbai. That's why before we had testimony, Rav Shimloi said, about what happened. They were matir, and Rab first comment was he believed somebody from Lut. You weren't around yesterday, Beis Hamedrash, because she tarnus Hashem. We were matter the oil. We decided that to ban oil of a guy, it doesn't make sense anymore. Or as we said, it's not a gzei that people were able to accept, and therefore we were matter. So if you're already being matter, be a menu tated after the pass. Bread is a staple item, as the Rishalmi says, it's chayin nefesh. Be matter it. I can't. You know why? Im kain korulon bezdin shayid. They'll give us a nickname that we are Mekilim. We're Mekilim, and that you don't want to have that name. You want to be branded as a Mekel. And that's the brilliance of Moshe Feinstein. Some things he's the biggest machmer ever. Some things he's the biggest Mekel. So nobody can accuse him because certainly, like in Eidevin and other things, there's no one more machmer than Moshe. And in other things, there's no more Mekel, which means he's not a Mekel nor he's a machmer. In each one, this is what he thinks. That's why the Rebbe sends so many people there, especially for heavy shilas. Nan, we learned in the Mishnah, Heyid, Rabbi Yosef ben Yedid said, we learned in the Mishnah, how do I know that it's such a bad nickname? We learned in the Mishnah, Rabbi came along and he said, Al-Ayel come to a certain kind of grasshopper, Dochit. This is Tahir. And we'll talk about it in a minute. We had this whole sugya, the famous sugya, at the end of the first Pedic, which every yeshiva, when they get to they skip to the end of the Pedic, over there it talks about the mashke beis mechaya, the liquids inside the base of Mikdash, they were not going to tumah on it. And we have Machlek Zavar Shmuel, how far we went. Dochin is Torah. And the third thing is about the yikrav lemisa, if you touch a dead body, misav, you become tamei. Now what that means, the Gemara will discuss as well, because the Torah said, you touch a dead body, you become tamei. The korale, and he was somehow mat to something. The Korale, and they gave them a nickname, Yosef Sharia. That Rabbi Yosef ben Yezid became Yosef the mat, the Mekel. Amalei said to him, what's that? Hosam shot at last. 3 things, a chazaka, okay, he's a muhzit to be Mekel. Or Mar shot a chad, all you love was Shemen, so make pass. Vishori Mar chad achrita, kada tatu daven, it will be 2, not 3. Amalei, ano shara achrita. I already was mat to something else. And therefore, you bunch them all together, the aggregate suddenly be 3. What else was he? A sugya that we actually had elsewhere. Now we haven't eaten. If a person gives a get, it makes a t'nai, then obviously the get is not valid unless it's a t'nai. And then if there's a t'nai, sometimes we say it's retrospective, sometimes we say it's mekana lahaba, from when you fulfill the condition, from then on the get kicks in. So what happens if a man says to his wife, Zeh gitich, and he doesn't want her to remain on almana, and then she becomes a yibum, had no kids, so he wants to protect her. But on the other hand, doesn't want to divorce her. So he says, look, I'm going overseas. If I'm not back within 12 months, you're a free woman, you're not aguna. But he died before the 12 months are up. Ain't a get. Now, why isn't it a get? Because it sounds like a man that this get will only take effect after the 12 months, but he's no longer dead, and dead people can't give a get. She's already a free woman from him, but a mess, not else get. The Tani Allah, we learned that I was saying and our Rebbe said, no, it's retrospective. Which word here means retrospectivity? Who is this Rebbe saying? That bezdin that was matzah the oil was matzah this as well. Now, interesting.
This guy was matzah something else once.
But this is interesting. They were only matzah 2 things because he wasn't matzah pass, and yet they really gave him a name of being a makel. He said, I'm worried about 3 things, but actually, it's not. So what he's saying is, even according to the Shitoscha, 3, I'll have 3. But Emerson, even 2 things already have a bad name. This is also Bezdin. This is also Bezdin, and you matter things that everybody else thinks is awesome. Stop matter, nothing wrong. Talking about everybody, the general consensus is that this should be awesome. You come along and you matter. That's what we're talking about here. like he was Mata Shem Mishcha. Everybody followed everyone knew that was also, even though not everybody practiced it, and he came along with Mata. So like Rabbi Yossi, because what's the slaughter? Because he held the Rabbi Yossi, and this is what we learned in the Gemara Gittin the Amar. Zman Shtar, the fact that there's a date in the star, and Babasa Mechichla. Why do you put a date in the star if you don't want to take effect till after 12 months or till after the person dies? Is a raya you want the star to take effect from the moment the date is there. Or Rabbi Yudah Hanasi was the one who passed that it should be mutlaq v'yasi, and Kol Shaita, as long as he was alive, they didn't follow what he said. The others said Kol Sayati, his whole team did not follow what he said, which some want to say it's either just start making a comment. Others want to say, well, he was trying to argue that if somebody was going to argue, that doesn't count, this din that you were matzah, because nobody listened to you. He wants to say, when are you called a makilim if people now turn around and listen to you? Different ways of learning something about here. When you were there, let me ask you a question. When they said that the person died within the 12 months because the date is on the retrospective, the get. If you gave a get to your wife and you said, if I'm not back in 12 months, the get is a valid get, and then he died in the middle. So according to Rabbi Yossi, and that's how Rabbi Yehuda Nasi Paskins, since there's a date on it, it's retrospective. So this guy said, you were there, the better tell me. So when did the get take effect? The moment the guy died, or you had to wait the full 12 months for the tonight to kick in before the get is valid. So he said, Ahusava, Kishayisa, when you were there, Alta Shayisa, Asi, we know for sure he's not coming. So therefore, right away, even though it's in month number 6, he's not coming, so therefore the get is valid because it's retrospective. So therefore, maybe the retrospective kicks in already. Only when the tonight is fulfilled do we say it becomes retrospective. If he asks, what? Yeah, but he doesn't want that, then because of Yivama. She has to stop marrying his brother. He's trying to prevent her from marrying his brother. So he asked him back. But the brother said, why asking on the Yossi or Shmuel? Ask on the Mishnah. It says the Mishnah. Stop. You have a get a Tanai, which is ma'achsha, which means it's retrospective. When does it kick in? If a guy adds the word ma'achsha, then it's retrospective. Even 12 months, if I'm not back, died in the middle. How do he get this? A get okay tonight because the fact is he didn't come back after 12 months. Exactly. So he said Ma'achsha is retrospective while he was still alive. My question is, but ask the same question. So when does it get? You know he's not coming back in 12 months. So can we already rely on the get and have her marry? The whole is not coming. You have to wait for the tonight to actually take place. I could have asked the Mishnah, I'm sure to have about whom in Yana, but you were there. I went home if they spoke about it, if it was even discussed. Everyone agrees. If you use the following words, I'm giving you a get, that when the get should be chal when the sun comes out. So it's clear that it's not retrospective. He's telling you clearly when the sun comes out, that's when the get is valid. And let's say if he died, whatever before the sun comes out of the artika, then get lachamisa. The get is not going to take effect until, let's say, the sun comes out of his artika in the morning, but he's dead. He died at night. So therefore, there's nothing to talk about because there's no question. It's not retrospective in this case. If he says al menashe teitzecham, we may get on the condition that the sun rises. Ma'achshav kambla. It's as if he's saying the get is valid now, and this is a condition. I'm giving you a get now, and the condition is that the sun will have to rise. So when the sun rises, it's retrospective from now. The chima is belayla about it. There's no question. There's no argument. This is tonight. We get and we get b'chaim with the get is retrospective. He fulfilled it tonight. The sun came out. She's divorced. Saying the word almanas on the condition is as if you're saying ma'achshav. If you only when you argue when he said the words be'im teitzei, he says if the sun comes out in the morning. How do we understand the word if? Is if like almanas? When he said if the sun comes out, because only when the sun comes out then it's retrospective, or even like a normal tonight. Now, when the sun comes out, that's when you Mekudesh. The fact that this is man l'shtar, but because there's a date on the shtar, why do you put a date on it if you just wait till the morning and it just says if you gave it then? Is that ayah that you want the shtar to be chal from the moment of the date? But if this will be a get if I die. Get either. Gufa, that with three things that he was made. He said, Yosef Yezer said three, he ate this, and then they called him, this is the Bezna Makilim. Let's go through this thing. Gufa, hey, that is as each trade, I'll count on a certain kind of a grasshopper, Dochi, that's tired. Because we don't know the grasshoppers today, so generally speaking, a few communities, we don't eat. And the second thing was, Mashke Beit Mechai, the liquids in the base of Mikdash, they're not going to Tumim, but Rabbanon, and Dochi and Torah, Al the Kadal Misa, somebody touches their dead body, Messiah becomes Tameh. The Kadal, and they called him from then on, Yosef Shaya. Yisur the Mekel. Let's go through it. My Kamsa, what exactly is this grasshopper? Papa says Shushiva is a certain kind of a grasshopper, has a very, instead of all the grasshoppers generally have round heads, and this one has a long head, very elongated. And so like Shushiva. And the Imam was saying, which species of grasshopper. This is one says it is shushiva, and one says it's papa shushiva kamiflagi, and the machlek is between Yosef and Yezacham in beroishe aruch. It's a long head. Marsav beroishe aruch, also beroishe aruch. They're arguing whether everything else the simonim is tired except the head, which is not one of the four simonim. Is long. How do we treat that? That's machlek the Yosef Yezer and the Chachamim. And it's a different species altogether. Suzbil. But everyone agrees that the head is long. It's totally different species. It's not the kosher species. But here we're talking about the case with the knaf of the wings have to cover most of the body, but it's not really covering, barely covering most of the body. You need a ruba cold enough. You need a recognizable. Okay. But the liquid mashkin. Now, there's a machlekes is going to be is mashkin mekabel tumah mahatoyre or only midrabon. Let's do the basic make. What's mashkin? There's two things about tumah. One is it's mekabel tumah, it receives tumah, and one that it generates and passes it on to the next, transfer the tumah. So there's a machlekes when we say that mashkin is only midrabanon. Are we talking about, and it becomes a tchil as well? But are we talking about that it becomes tamei ma'atoida, but it cannot pass on to only midrabanon, or we say that it's becable to midrabanon. I the pasuk and then Patishmini the by the Kedi. That's talking about to be machshir other things. Remember, for something to become tamei, it has to get wet. So the water mashka is prepares other things to mekabel tumah, but it itself. Ma'atoida is not mekabel tumah. That's going to be the machlekes. And then in the base of Midrash, we had a rule in there in Ein Goyzer Shus. In the base of Midrash, we don't generally make Yisur Rabbanon, except certain Shus G'dayla we do, and therefore we're not going to ask liquids with Rabbanon. But the question is, what didn't they ask? That it doesn't pass on to me, or that it itself does not become Tameh? That says the Gemara, my Doche, what do you mean, Toy? Rabba Doche in Mamish, it's completely Toy. Shmuel says, Dochin Motame Achedim. Shmuel said that it's not Matame others. Gemara explains. I was not yes, but surely they become Tame even inside the base of English. Rabbi Dochin Mamik, so he holds Tum is Mashkin is on the Rabban. He holds on the Rabbanon, and he goes to Rabban Tum is Mashkin. Now, generally liquids are Mashkin, but Mashkin inside the base of English, like goes to Rabban, we're not going to. And Shmuel says, Dochin Motame Achedim. That the only thing that's the Rabbanon is transferring tumah to others. Abel tumas atzma, but their own tumah yesh behen they do have. Because somebody holds that tumas mashkin the araisa, that tumas mashkin it itself is gorma hatoy, like the pasuk said pashas, and the tamei achedim is not the Rabbanon for liquids. The tamei others the Rabbanon. He goes Rabbanon mashkin alma. When would Rabbanon go? He's a general liquids, but mashkin mechai, but inside the base midrash like goes through. The last one was the Yikad of Lemisa Massacre. If somebody touches a dead body, they become Tameh. First of all, I think I was going to ask, so where was he matzit? For you tell me he's machmir. He said you become Tameh, number one. Number two, the Torah says, if you touch a dead body, you become Tameh. Well, what's going on here? So very much Yosef also Erstens, it should have said that Yosef came as Machmer. He said that if you touch a dead body, tummy. Number one. Number two, boy, that I see. What do you mean he was Matir, Machmer? The Torah says, Call Asher Yiga Pnei Asada, that anything touches in the field, the Chalal Chelav in the mess, it will come tummy. And he says, on Nefesh and Negas is tummy. And so on and so forth. Says the Gemara, the rice, the yikra tamei, the yikra, but yikra Torah. Only if you touch a dead body, you become tamei. If you touch a person who touches a dead body, you don't become Torah. But also, Inu came along the chachamim, the gazer after the yikra, that even a person who touches a dead body, by the way, this tomorrow can be difficult, as we'll see, that even a person who touches that body becomes tamei is only midrabana. And also, Iu came along and he said, look, mother, I said, no. Cancel that. Let's go back to the way the Torah had originally planned, which is only the person who touches the mace becomes tamei, but not the person who touches the person who touches the mace. But the Gemara, what are you talking about? The Yikab Nami the Raisu. It says very clearly, if you touch a person touches a dead body is an Avi Avoisatuma, a person who touches it becomes an Avatuma, and then if a person touches that, you become a Rishon Tuma. And you tummy till at night. So what's going on here? Anything that tummy touches becomes tummy, including a person. So the Gemara, Omru Rabban Kamed Rava Mashmei Marzuter Bredam Nachman Mashmei Nachman should have said the name of Marzuter, who is the son of a Nachman, in the name of Rab Nachman. The Yikra no. You know what the Torah said that if you touch a tummy, you become tummy? Only Kozman, the first person, is still touching the dead body. It's called chiburin. Tumas chiburin. If the person who's touching the dead body and you touch now this person, then you become tummy mahat Torah. That's what the Torah is talking about. But if the person walks away,
it becomes up.
No.
The second person
becomes a rishon, but it's mahat Torah. But if the first person who touches the body now walked away from the dead body and then touches you, then you're only tummy midrabban. That's how they learn. The rice mahatoira, the yikra bechiburin. Only what the first guy still touching the dead body to mashiva shaloi bechiburin to masedef. Oh, so mahatoira. Sorry. When do we say that you are tummy just like the first person? If you're holding on to him while he's first person holding on a mace. If the first person is not holding on a mace, you become tummy. It's a cholash yikra, but only to masedef. But also, came along the Chachamim, the Gazer Afilu Shaloi Bechiburin to Meshiva. They said, you know what? Let's not make a distinction whether the Bechiburin or not. Anybody who touches a tummy mace, it becomes tummy for 7 days. Well, see, he came along, but he hasn't said Ukma the Raisa. No, and God said, let's go back to the Torah. The Raisa Mai, where do you find in the Torah that if you touch a tummy mace, you only tummy erev? He says, look at the psukim. You see, in one pasuk it says Hanageya b'mace. Somebody touches a mace, l'chol nefesh adam b'tamei she was young, for 7 days, and then it says l'chol asher yiga boy hatamei, that person who's tummy, anything he touches becomes tummy, right? And then it says v'hanefesh hadneg, sounds like exactly the same tumah, 7 days, and then it says v'hanefesh hanagas titma ad that somebody touches that person, you only tummy till night. The beginning of the passage sounds like that the person whose tummy mace touches something, another person becomes tummy 7 days. But the end of the passage seems that if somebody touches the tummy mace, you only put to add the erev, only 1 day. Which, how is it possible? Okay, so we make a chiluk. Can be chiburin, then like you said before, like you're touching the mace itself, and therefore your tummy 7 days. And can shaloi bechiburin, if the tummy mace walked away, then you only tummy for that day. Amalu Rava, so Rava said, Lab Amina Lachu. Didn't I ever tell you? We had this in many places. Didn't I tell you that Loitislu Be Buke Sariki Berab Nachman? What are you putting Machlekes in places there in Rashi and Ram or Rashi? Harulim Shat. Here Rashi says it means empty kalim, pusta kalim. That what are you attributing such nonsense to Rab Nachman? Well, they're talking about people who are pusta people. Hachyaram Nachman has a whole different pshat. Now, Tesis actually says that some of the Shem said that the pshat is still correct. They just don't think that that's pshat here in what Yosef Yezer did. But the halacha is still correct. But then come out so strongly against him when he said the right halacha. The question is if that's the pshat in what Yosef Yezer did. So anyway, Rabbi Kozlon has another pshat in what Yosef Yezer did. What is that? So the Gemara, Amram Nachman, sorry, Hachyaram Nachman, Safik. This is what he came along. That he said that if in a private place, if you're suffering and you touch something coming out, we're always going to be machmir. In a public place, if you're suffering, if you touch something coming out, we're always making. If you touch something, you don't know if it's a part of a human or not. We learned that from Saita itself, because Saita we treat it as if something happened there. Even though, it's a suffix, we don't really know if anything happened untoward. But where did it happen? Only in a discrete place. In Nistara, only in a discrete place. That's like a Shasiyachid, so we say. But if she spoke to that very person in a public place, nothing. So we see from there that subject to Mishas Rabbi Mistari, the subject to Mishas Yachid is coming. So what are you telling me? A Maisim the Rabban and Yosef Yezer arguing that this and Yosef Yezer came along and introduced that subject to Rabbi Mistari. Chadin for Saita. Halach for Saita. Masay Yosef Yachid after Mishas Yachid. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yechanan, halacha they moeding. Initially, the Chachamim said, yes, that's true, but why tell people that are subject to it? People don't take tumah lightly. As far as people are concerned, let's always be machmer. Subject to it should be machmer. But also, came on Yeshua Yezer and he publicized it. But and he went and passed and told everybody. I taught everybody. And that's why they called him, with the names. Rabbi Yehuda said that he was very busy, in demarking private property from other private, from Rosh Hashanah. And why did he do that? It's the laws of Tumah. Noatz, Kodesh Noatz Lam, he placed all of these beams along the boundaries of their properties. And he said, At Kan Rosh Hashanah. Till here is a Rosh Hashanah. At Kan Rosh Hashanah. Till here is a Rosh Hashanah. He showed off where each person's boundaries are. Why? Because he held as a rabbim and he made it public. By doing this, as they in public, and he announced why I'm doing this, he taught them all this halacha. But when it came to Rabbi Yana, he was still machmir. He didn't accept Yeshua Yezev's sack, and he told people, don't rely on something to go to the mikveh and be metaher yourself. And be metaher. So some of the Shayim learn that we're not learning that suffix to Mishazam is Torah from Satan. Because there's a din called chazaka. Whenever there's a suffix, you always go back to chazaka. What were you told? You were tired. And then you touch something. You don't know what happened. So what would you forget about Satan? What would the din be? Whenever there's a suffix, you go back to the chazaka mikara. So you would say, well, you're told you were tired. We don't know if anything changed. We'll leave the way it is. So Teresa's and other Rishonim here, and especially Satan, learn that what we're learning with Satan is that a suffix to Mishazayachid is like a vadik. That's what we're learning. That's the chiddush. Because also you have a suffix, you have a chazaka, you should say tired. Might not come in if it's a yachid, it's a rabbi. The chiddush of Satan is, but if it's a yachid, because Satan is like tumah. In fact, that's the having more about becoming the firal. What Satan? Satan is neither. Is neither a din in isurim or is neither a din in tumah v'tara. What's the whole idea of neither? Anyway, now we'll go to the next thing in Mishnah Hashlokis. Cooked items, bishalakum. There's a fascinating machlekes in the Rishonim, the Ramban, and others. Which Gezeda was first? In the Mishnah, it says first Pas, Shemen, and then Shlokas. So Ramban learned that Pas Akum was the first Gezeda made. So they felt that Pas is worse because since it's a staple item, you need it. Socializing here is a big thing. Cooking is not that bad. So they made first Pas Akum, and the easier one was Shlokas. Others are forget. So how come we have so many more coolers by Pas than we have by Shlokas? Remember I told you yesterday that Shami in cooking able to learn tomorrow. I told yesterday because it depends if you learn that the coolest are because after they realize it is a staple item and they have to make it easier because there's no Jew, or is it the chatchila people were not makabel it? Why weren't people makabel it? Because you need bread to subsist on, and you're making it too difficult. Anyway, the other Shem hold no. Bishalakum was the first thing they made. In fact, you see from the Rai from the Gemara right here. That Bishalakum was the first day. There's a lot more social activity. And bread, they say there's no kinship by bread. You go in, you eat a piece of bread, you go on. A meal, you can spend hours. You don't spend hours eating a piece of bread. So there's much more socializing by Bishalakum. So therefore, that was the first piece. And then later on, they added Pas, and that's why Pas is so much easier because it was an add-on. You might ask a question, the more right now things are smart Torah, and that's why some of the Rishonim hold that Shlokas was first because we're going back to the Torah. As we see, we'll soon see. The Gemara brings Psukim. Saying to Sichon that we will buy food from you, and we'll eat it. Give it, and water we'll buy from you, we'll drink it. Why do you have to itemize water and thing? So we learn from it. We will compare food to water. Just like water, we're only going to drink from you because you didn't. It doesn't change from you didn't change it. We need food that wasn't changed. In other words, it wasn't cooked. But all you did was they dried the wheat and turned it into kloyes. Hachinam is you're not buy from a goy because it changed. It's no longer the original wheat. Maybe taka. But time you learn chitin was and kloyes, mutarin. You're allowed to take the guy from a goy. Look, we'll go a step further. Can mine like water. My mind but just now, like mine didn't change from its original state. Not that it just because toasted wheat is still wheat, just it's dried. Mashenkein. So therefore it's the same thing. But if something completely changed, like you cooked it, okay, changing. Let's say you bought wheat and you ground it, turn it into flour. You shouldn't have to buy flour from a guy. The good, the bad, the poor quality flour, the better quality flour. We're going to compare it to water. Fire will cause it. You cannot cook the items you cannot eat from a guy. So we're finding a pasuk in the Torah. So you want to meet the urksiv. Where's the pasuk say only if it changed because of fire? Where are you getting all this from? Ela midrabanan. So the first initial premise was that it's ma'atayda, which means that Taisus and the Ritva and others, not like the Ramban, that this is the first gzei they made. Ukras machta bam, only as machta. Okay, we'll continue the whole sugi of